the same will have 3 milligrams of fentanyl instead of 1. It'll cross the border, end up in a suburban American town, and kill the user instantly.
That is terrifying.
The cartel knows this. They know the margin for error is non-existent, but they press the pills anyway because the profit margins are simply too massive to ignore. The deaths are just, well, factored in as the cost of doing business.
We've been talking about the Sinaloa cartel quietly buying a government to protect this pipeline, but they aren't the only players in Mexico.
No, not at all.
To really understand how this situation eventually exploded into an international crisis, we have to look at the other side of the coin. We have to look at the rival Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG, and the federal hunters who refuse to be bought.
Right, because someone is fighting back.
Exactly. If the cartels are this entrenched, is anyone actually fighting back?
Yes. And to understand that fight, you have to look at Omar Garcia Harfuch. He's Mexico's security secretary. Back in 2020, his armored Suburban was ambushed in the middle of Mexico City by the CJNG.
And they were commanded by a man known as El Mencho, right?
Right. The cartel fired over 400 bullets into his vehicle. 2 of his bodyguards died on the spot. Harfuch took 3 bullets himself, but he survived.
400 bullets. That is a military-grade assassination attempt right in the capital city.
Exactly. And because of that, he essentially had to move out of his home permanently. He now lives in a heavily fortified apartment built inside a police ministry complex.
Literally right above a firing range.
Yeah, right above a firing range. He has dedicated his entire existence to hunting the cartels. He applies the exact same paranoid, isolated discipline to his life that the cartel bosses apply to theirs.
So how does a guy like Harfuch, isolated in a bunker in Mexico City, actually take down a ghost? Because for 15 years, El Mencho had been completely untouchable.
The most wanted man in Mexico.
Exactly. Which sets us up for February 2026. El Mencho is hiding out in the freezing pine forest near Tapalpa in the state of Jalisco. But high above him, completely invisible, a CIA drone is orbiting.
What's fascinating here is the stark contrast in that exact moment. You have the cold, perfect patience of a machine.
Right.
A drone can orbit for 18 hours. It never gets tired. It never blinks. It just quietly tracks thermal signatures through the trees. And it is waiting for a fundamentally human flaw.
Because El Mencho had survived for a decade and a half by ruthlessly suppressing every human impulse, moving from camp to camp.
Exactly. But on this specific morning, he breaks his own rules. He walks out of his cabin, across an open space, simply to put his arms around a woman he loves.
Wow. And the drone captures the heat signature, the biometrics confirm it's him, Garcia Harfuch gets the call, and he sends in the military special forces.
Right.
There is a massive firefight in this dense, frost-covered pine forest. El Mencho tries to escape, running through the undergrowth despite having failing kidneys, but he's finally caught and mortally wounded.
He dies in a helicopter transport.
He does. But here's the terrifying part about modern cartels. You don't just kill a leader of that magnitude and go home to celebrate. The CJNG had a dead man switch built into their organization.
That's right. The response was immediate, and it was devastating.
How does a decapitated cartel instantly coordinate a nationwide response? Like, the boss is dead.
They use a decentralized cell structure. The plaza bosses, the regional cartel commanders, they aren't waiting for a central phone call from headquarters if the boss falls.
So it's automatic.
Basically, yeah. They have standing contingency orders, communicated through encrypted messaging apps like WhatsApp or Signal. If the leader goes down, the network automatically activates to create maximum chaos.
To stretch the military resources.
Exactly, stretching them so thin that no further arrests can be made. Within hours, the cartel activated 252 coordinated roadblocks across 20 different Mexican states.
They set the resort city of Puerto Vallarta on fire. You had tourists trapped in their hotel lobbies, just watching columns of black smoke rise over the city.
It was apocalyptic.
The cartel was torching OXXO convenience stores nationwide. And they weren't just lashing out randomly, right? It was a deliberate message that they can reach any neighborhood, anywhere.
They even put a cash bounty of about $1,100 on the head of any soldier killed. By the end of that single Saturday, 72 people were dead.
72 people.
Yeah. It is a brutal mechanism that proves decapitating a cartel doesn't end the violence. It often just decentralizes and amplifies it.
And the ripples from this operation go even further, straight into a massive geopolitical trap. Because finding El Mencho relied entirely on that secret CIA drone.
The invisible eye in the sky.
Right. And that same U.S. intelligence apparatus hadn't just been looking at Jalisco. They had also been quietly gathering evidence on the corrupt Sinaloa government we talked about earlier.
Right, the lined paper ledgers.
Exactly. This secret gray zone intelligence war gets violently dragged into the light 2 months later in April 2026 when a vehicle crashes in Chihuahua.
A very suspicious crash.
Very. 2 Americans die, and it leaks out that they were CIA officers operating on Mexican soil without the formal knowledge of the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum.
It completely exposed the reality of U.S.-Mexico security relations. U.S. intelligence has operated in Mexico for decades, often coordinating with trusted, thoroughly vetted officials like Garcia Harfuch.
But deliberately bypassing the executive office.
Yes, to avoid leaks to corrupt politicians.
So President Sheinbaum is publicly blindsided. She has to admit she didn't know the CIA was running operations in her own country. And just days later, the Southern District of New York drops a bombshell.
Oh, this was huge.
They unseal a massive indictment against the Sinaloa governor, Ruben Rocha Moya, and his entire cabinet. They officially charge them with running a cartel government.
Yep.
Now, wait a minute. How can a court in Manhattan indict a sitting Mexican governor?
The Southern District of New York has a very long arm when it comes to jurisdiction, because the fentanyl being protected by that corrupt government in Sinaloa crosses the U.S. border and causes deaths in American jurisdictions. U.S. federal courts claim the authority to prosecute the conspiracy.
So the jurisdiction follows the pills.
Exactly. And their evidence was devastating. They had the intercepted communications, the DEA informants, and yes, those handwritten, lined paper ledgers showing the exact bribe amounts.
Rocha Moya completely denies it, naturally. He frames the indictment not as a criminal matter, but as an American attack on Mexico's national sovereignty.
Of course he does.
Now, the sources bring up Senator Lily Tellez here. She's a former journalist, now an opposition politician. And just to be clear for the listener, we are impartially reporting her perspective as it's laid out in the material.
Right, we're not taking sides here.
Exactly. But she goes on American television, specifically Fox News, and plainly calls Mexico a mafiocracy. Tellez essentially argues that when local institutions are totally captured by the cartels, appealing to American pressure is the only way to force accountability. She wants the U.S. to force Sheinbaum's hand.
Which is a very intense political stance.
It is. So what does this all mean for the president? I mean, if the evidence is this overwhelming down to the exact dollar amounts on handwritten receipts, why doesn't President Sheinbaum just extradite the governor, hand him over to New York, and wash your hands of it?
This raises an important question about the complex reality of Mexican politics. Sheinbaum is trapped in an impossible dilemma between two competing imperatives.
Okay, what are they? On one hand, she ran on a strict anti-corruption platform. She wants to be the leader who finally cleans up the state. But on the other hand, there is a fierce historical nationalist requirement to defend Mexican sovereignty against what is perceived as U.S. imperial overreach.
So if she bends to the U.S.?
If she extradites a sitting governor from her own political party, based on a secret U.S. investigation that she wasn't even briefed on, she looks weak. She looks like she is taking orders directly from Washington.
And the U.S. has massive leverage to do exactly that.
It's absolutely. It's not just about diplomacy, it's about economics. You have the upcoming renegotiation of the USMCA trade agreement. Mexico's manufacturing economy relies incredibly heavily on tariff-free trade with the U.S.
Without it, their economy tanks.
Entirely. Furthermore, you have the 2026 World Cup, hosted jointly across North America, with massive international security preparations underway. The U.S. is essentially signaling, we have the receipts, we know your institutions are compromised.
If you want to remain our economic partner and host the world, you have to clean house. It's just a staggering scale of pressure. You have billions of dollars, international trade agreements, and heavily armed factions all colliding. But before we wrap up this deep dive, we have to bring this back down to the ground.
We do.
Because beyond the CIA drones and the Manhattan indictments and the presidential dilemmas, Sinaloa is a real place full of regular people just trying to survive.
It is. It's a place where, on a warm Sunday afternoon, the smell of carne asada drifts over garden walls as extended families gather.
Right.
It's a place where 17,000 people pack the stadium to watch the Tomateros play baseball, cheering and eating snacks just like anywhere else in the world.
There's a detail in the sources about a third-grade teacher named Martha. She's lived in Culiacan for 35 years. A journalist asks her if she's afraid of the cartel presence, and she says yes, sometimes. But mostly, she's just living her life. Her kids go to school there, her parents are buried in the local cemetery. She said they always knew something was fundamentally wrong with the government. They saw the police look the other way. They just didn't know if anyone on the outside would ever actually care.
Which brings us full circle to the very beginning of our conversation. Because caring, or trying to do the right thing, has a horrific cost.
It really does.
Alexander Mazzaleone, the man in the patrol car, cared enough or was motivated enough to talk to the DEA. And the cartel found out. But they didn't just kill him.
No.
To send a message, they looked for anyone connected to him. And that included a 13-year-old boy.
A kid.
Yes, a 13-year-old boy, a relative of Alexander's, who was killed by the cartel purely as retribution.
That is just heartbreaking.
His name won't appear in the Manhattan indictments. He won't be mentioned in the high-level geopolitical debates over trade agreements or border security. But he is the true, devastating cost of what was purchased with those handwritten lists.
We just saw how an incredibly complex, multi-billion-dollar cartel secured absolute power over a state using nothing more than lined paper, a few $1,000s a month, and a faded municipal patrol car.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, as you go about your day, driving to work, paying taxes, interacting with the systems that govern your life, how many other normal institutions in our world are quietly functioning under an entirely different set of invisible rules that we just can't see?
That is the ultimate poison of the Sierra Madre. It doesn't just destroy the people who take the pills. It rots the entire system from the inside out until a police patrol car isn't a symbol of safety anymore. It's just a delivery vehicle.